Tokar here, continuing with the Blacksmith dictionary. This morning it's stakes, which are mostly used for sheet metal work, but occasionally for other things. This is a stake plate holder that's normally mounted in a bench. They have different sized rectangular and square holes for sockets for mounting different sized stakes. You have stakes like this that are meant to go inside of, say, a rectangular box to even up the square corners and take any ripples or dents out, or maybe to lay a seam down. They fit into a stake plate like that. You also have stakes that have shapes, like this radius, this little mushroom stake, which is used for taking the dents out of bottoms or for even doing a little light raising. And you have stakes that have, like this has got a tapered radius, which is useful for doing all sorts of things. And quite often the smaller stakes are named after the type of work that they did. Like this little narrow case is called a needle case stake, because when they used to make little sheet metal cases for sewing needles, this is the stake that you used for setting the seam and making the little tapered case. Slightly bigger stake was called a candle mold stake, because you made candle molds for casting candles. So this would allow you to get in and shape the sheet metal and lock the seam down. And the other end allowed you to set the little tapered part for the top of the candle in the candle mold. And then you have slightly heavier stakes that have creases or grooves in them that were used for setting wire rims or rolled edges on things like buckets and cups and larger vessels. And they also have a nice heavy tapered horn, which was used for things like making funnels. And you have gradated stakes, which have the same taper, but they are longer and heavier, and the small end of that stake overlaps with the big end of that stake. So if you had to make a really long taper, you could actually overlap and make a longer taper than you have a single mandrel or stake for. And I'll show you another one. This is called a blowhorn stake, though what they really used it for was for making funnels, because you had this wide, fairly fast taper that could allow you to form the funnel end, and this would be the little spout on the funnel. Then you have mandrils like this that are just basically straight circular sections that were used for locking the seams on things like cups and small canisters and tubes. And you have forming mandrels. This is a jeweler's mandrel for making bracelets, because this is an oval cross section that allows you to make a nice oval bracelet starting from smaller to bigger. And then you also have the stakes. This normally fits in an anvil instead of a stake plate that would have been used for working the bottoms of a pot or a pan. So if you have a dent in the bottom of the pan, you could actually drop the pan or the pot over that and level out the bottom. Sometimes the vessel you're working on is deeper than your stakes, so you need a stake extension or a stake holder. So you have something like this that would go in the stake plate, and you would have a smaller stake that could fit in it. And you don't need to make a stake with that long stem because you can use smaller radiuses, have a whole variety of them, and use one stake holder. To get a little more reach and for odder shaped vessels, you just have a bigger stake holder. This one has a holder at either end of that shape, which would allow you to go into larger vessels. Or you have a bent one. So the same little stake can go in different holders. Anyway, this is sort of an overview, a bird's eye view of sheet metal stakes. And I call them sheet metal stakes because probably 95 times out of 100, what you're doing is just forming sheet metal. You're not changing the dimensions, the thickness, the cross-section of the sheet metal. You're just forming it or locking a seam or giving it a shape. The same thing can be said for armorer's stakes. Silversmiths and coppersmith stakes, though, can also be designed to change the cross-section, because if you're raising or sinking a shape in the forming process, you're actually driving the metal thicker and narrower in some cases. So you can't say that it's entirely staying the same cross-section. But none of the stakes I've shown you is really a raising stake for doing that kind of work. That's more specialized silversmithing and coppersmithing. I will probably get around to showing you that kind of equipment, but it's an entirely different ball of wax. Anyway, that's it for this morning. Bye.